about a mita and to deal with his overall shita that we came out with from the Mishnayos and Olis and the Parah. So the Gemara said, if you want, you can answer like this. Rabbi Yehuda is going according to his own reasoning, the Amr that said, Sukkah diras keva binan. The sukkah needs to be a fixed dwelling. Therefore, what it comes out is, v'havle mita diras arai. You're right, the mita is a tent, but it's only a temporary dwelling. The sukkah oil keva, while the sukkah is a fixed tent. V'le asi oil arai umavato oil keva. And the temporary dwelling, the temporary tent, cannot negate the fixed tent, and therefore, Yehuda's opinion is that being underneath the bed in the sukkah is not going to take away from the fact that you're in the sukkah. So the Gemara said, Reb Shimon. Look at Reb Shimon. He says, the Amar, Nami also. He also says it throughout the hamisechta. Sukkah diras keva binon. He also says the sukkah needs to be a diras keva. And he seems to say, V'asi oil arai, umavata el keva. He says, no, the mita is a problem. The mita, which is a oil arai, comes and does negate the oil keva. So what's going on over here? Reb Shimon says being under the mita is a problem. How does Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda shtim? How do they fit together? It seems to be they hold the same thing. So the Gemara says, no, Bahal Pligin, this they argue. This is what they argue about. Mar Sava, Reb Shimon holds, Asi oil arai umavata el keva, that the temporary tent, which is the mita, does negate the fixed tent, which is the sukkah. Umar Sava and Reb Yehuda holds, Lo Asi oil arai, the temporary tent does not come umavata el keva and negate the fixed tent, and that is the end of the Gemara. Now I want to go, before we see the last bit of the Gemara, which is really its own piece, I want to read the Mishnah again. We now saw the entire Gemara. I think we'll have a whole new appreciation of how to read the Mishnah. Sometimes you don't go back to the Mishnah. Now we're going to read it again, and we're going to be people that know the entire Gemara and can know every single word of this Mishnah. So let's read the Mishnah again now. Hayoshen tacha semita b'sukkah. If somebody goes to sleep under a bed in a sukkah, lo yotzei de chevasei. He is not Yetzeh Chiyuv. The Tanakhama's opinion, and that's also the Rabbanan the Gemara calls him, so it's the majority opinion, is that if you sleep under a bed in a sukkah, you're not Yetzeh Chiyuv. Why not? What is wrong? What's the problem with this mita? So the reason is, now that we understand it, is that a mita is an oil, it's a tent, and because it's a tent, we cannot look at it as like you're in a sukkah, because you're sitting under a different tent within the sukkah. And therefore, you're not Yetzeh the Chiyuv of sleeping of Yeshiva Sukkah because of this problem. That is the Tanakhama's opinion. Reb Yehuda says, I'll tell you, we were accustomed to do this. We would sleep under a bed in front of the Zkenim, and they never said anything to us. So obviously, it must be okay. Why does Reb Yehuda hold it's okay? Now that we just went to Gemara, why is that fine? There are two reasons that we can now say. One reason was Rava. Rava came out that only something that is really considered a tent at all times, like the shor's bones are a real oil. And at all times, if you're under there, it's meant to protect the animal, and therefore, as a shame of a schach, and an animal's a tent. But a mita is meant to be used on top. It's never meant to be used below. And therefore, the mita is not considered a tent to look at it like you're not in the sukkah. So that is one shot, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the mita, which is meant to be used on top, does not work as a tent to stop you from being in the sukkah. That's answer one. Answer two, the Viba Yisema is, it is a tent. It is an oil, according to Rabbi Yehuda. It is. However, it's an oil arai. It's temporary, and it cannot come and negate the fixed sukkah which you are in. Two answers. It's either it is an oil or it's not an oil. Those are the two answers for Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon said, Ma'isa b'Tavi Avdi Shavim Gamil, a story with Tavi, the evidence of Rabbi Gamil, he did sleep under the bed. He slept there. V'amr lehen Rabbi Gamil was Zakanim, and Rabbi Gamil said to the Zakanim, Re'isem Tavi Avdi, do you see Tavi, my servant? Shehu Talmid Chacham, he's well learned. V'yodeh sh'avadim peturim min sukkah, and he knows that avadim, evet kananim, are patur from the sukkah. Lefichach, therefore, yashen tahu tachas amita. Therefore, he slept under the bed. That is the story. That's what Rabbi Gamil said. So Rabbi Shimon said, based on this story, lefi darkenu lamadu, from our comings and goings, from hearing what Rabbi Gamliel said, we have learned that somebody who sleeps under the bed, is not yotze his chiyuv. Reb Shimon also holds like the Tanna Kama, you're not yotze. But why does Reb Shimon hold you're not yotze? Reb Shimon holds that in the Gemara, according to one pshat, is that he holds it is an oil. It is an oil, and it's a problem being in the sukkah. It takes away from being in the sukkah. Or the Gemara, it wasn't coming to answer Reb Shimon, but the Gemara came out that even according to Reb Shimon, an oil arai, even though it's temporary, would negate the oil kava. So either way, this oil, this mita, does negate the overall sukkah that you're in. So that is Reb Shimon's opinion, and therefore we now understand the Mishnah. So far, so good. Everyone good?
Shimon and the Rabbanan are the same shita.
So Reb Shimon and the Rabbanan, they hold the same name. It could be in the V'iba same, but there's a drop more of a knetch in Reb Shimon. Means could be in the first shita, a mita, as he holds that a mita has a din of an oil, because oil riba, you have a lot of different tense. But in the second teretz, it could be added on knetch, is that even though it's an oil arai, this little piece, and the sukkah is a keva, it's even stronger that the arai will still negate the sukkah keva. So it's like an added additional chiddush that Reb Shimon might have more than the Tanna Kama. Because the Tanna Kama holds it's a sukkah zediras arai. So he just needs one fact that the mita is a tent. But in the second Viba it's a little bit stronger in Reb Shimon. The Reb Shimon says even if it's the sukkah is a diras keva, still the mita, which is a diras arai, will negate the sukkah which is a diras keva. And that is our Mishnah. Very Geshmaka Mishnah with a Geshmaka Gemara. Fine, we're going to continue on with the Gemara on Chafal from a base. The Gemara quotes that part of the Mishnah. We're just going to focus on Reb Shimon's story and how he said it. Amr Reb Shimon Ma'aseh b'Tavi Avdi. Reb Shimon said a story about Tavi his Eved. Now the Gemara is going to say a brisa which elaborates and says a little more detail about the Mishnah. Tanya, a brisa. Amr Reb Shimon said, Misichasei shel Rabbi Gamliel, from Rabbi Gamliel's sicha. What does sicha mean? The word sicha, it means like schmoozing, but it means also schmoozing that's not holy. Sichas chulin. It's not like an holy coming to learn Torah type of speech. And it's also b'derech simcha. It's much more like casual, lighthearted, geshmaka speech. Okay, so it's not holy, and it's more relaxed, and it's more b'simcha. Obviously, it's not kalus roish. It's not lightheadedness, but it's a more relaxed, fun speech. So Reb Shimon says, from Reb Gamliel's light speech, Lamanu, we have learned Shnei Dvarim. We learned two things. Lamanu, we have learned Shavadim Petur Min HaSukkah, that slaves, specifically, I'm talking about Evet Kananim, non-Jewish slaves that converted, and now they have the halachas of a lady, Evet Kanani, that they're patur from the sukkah. And we know the reason is because it's a mitzvah saseh shazman grama. It's a time-bound mitzvah, which women are patur from, and therefore Avadim are patur as well. V'lamanda, we learned shehayashen tachas semita lo yotzei dechavas, and we also have learned that if you sleep under the bed, you're not yetzi your chiyuv. So the brayso is very similar to the words of the Mishnah, just a drop of a little bit of different words, and one of them is misichasei shel Rabbi Gamliel, from Rabbi Gamliel's sicha. Says the Gemara, v'lema, let it say midvarav shel Rabbi Gamliel. Why does it say from his sicha? Say from his dvar, from his words. Why that word sicha? Say from his words. Sicha means like light, happy speech, chilled. Just say from his words. You don't have to be so exacting about how he spoke. So the Gemara answers, Milsa agav urche kamashmalan. Milsa means a matter. Agav urche means by the way. You ever heard the expression by the way? It comes from the Gemara. Agav means like by, like on top of, near the side. Urche, the road. By the way. Agav urche, by the way, kamashmalan. He's coming to teach us. He's coming to teach us something on the side. What is that? Kiha, like that, which the Amar of Acha bar Ada, something that Rav Acha bar Ada said, who is an Amira. Sometimes a Tana, when it says he's coming to tell you what an Amira said, it means we know it from the Amiroim, but the Tana is trying to explain to us something that we know from Amiroim, but that is where they got it from this Tana. That which of Acha bar Ada said, The Amrila, and some reported that it was Amr of Acha bar Ada. The Rav Acha bar Ada said it Amr of Hamnuna in the name of Hamnuna, Amr Rav in the name of Rav. So it means it was said all the way back from Rav. Minayin, from where do you know Sha'afilu, that even Sichas Talmidei Chachamim, even the shmoozing, the light speech of Talmidei Chachamim, Tzricha Limud, that you need to learn up. When a Talmid Chacham is shmoozing, when you go to a wedding and you see two Talmidei Chachamim shmoozing or sheshiva, or he's making a comment in Geshmaka speech, you should listen to it because you can pick up limudim and paskin halacha l'maisa things. It's not just casual. There's real things to be learned from there. So what Reb Shimon was coming to bring out was a secondary chiddush, besides for the two main things, that an Eved's potter from sukkah, and that being under a bed in a sukkah is a problem. He was coming to bring out the fact, listen to Talmidei Chacham when they speak, because even their light speech, you can pick up halachas and learn from them. That's what he wanted to teach. Shenemar, where do you know this? Maybe you don't learn from them, they're just schmoozing, right? They're not being careful with what they're saying. Who says you should really learn from what they're saying to paskin halacha? So it's a pasuk in Tehillim, V'alehu lo yibol. Its leaves do not wither. It's talking about the famous song, V'hayu keisha sula palge mayim, al palge mayim, and it ends up, V'alehu lo yibol. It's talking about a Talmid Chacham. It's a mashal of a Talmid Chacham. That even his leaves, which means his light part, a tree, its light, its parts, it's his leaves. Even its leaves don't wither, there's meaning to his leaves. So from his light speech, you're able to pick up and learn halacha l'maisa. Now I have a question I'll share with the Olam. I'm a little bit bothered by this. Because Rabbi Gamliel, it wasn't like you're schmoozing about when was your flight come in, when did you, just schmoozing. He was saying very learned speech. I get it was jokey and it was besimcha, but it was very learned words. He was saying, look at Tavi, who's a Talmid Chacham, who slept under the bed, and he knows what he's doing. That to me is not Sichas Chulin. That's very heilige speech. We should always talk like that, right? That was his Sichas Chulin. That's his casual, non-holy speech. This is very holy. It's one thing if you told me, Gamil said, oh, by the way, look at that tree, it's very nice. I don't know, or like, I flew in today. Oh, I was able to pick up, he flew in today. That means he davened Shachris before Nate's because he flew in at that. Like, I'm able to pick up from his casual conversation. But here, he's speaking and learning. Although he did it b'simcha and in a funny way, why is this something that's like called Sichas Chulin? Why is it Sichas Chulin? That's my question. So I want to say, perhaps, that because he said it in a jokey way, he didn't say it so seriously. He said it in a more jokey, happy way. And Rashi, we're not supposed to quote Rashi here, but I'll be Rashi. Rashi says a few places here, that Gamil said it b'simcha and b'bidichusa, in a jokey way. So I'm considering the fact that he said it more jokey, that maybe that's also why it's a chiddush. Oh, it's like a jokey way. Maybe don't take it so seriously. But if not for that, if anyone has an answer,
We don't learn from here, from the sifas that it's part of the sukkah. We know it's from the sukkah because it's a decision on drama.
so they asked this. It's like a famous thing. But that's a good question. Yitzi's asking a good question. There's a famous thing that avadim and women are part of from Mitzvah Seishes Zangrama. Why do we need this story? They ask this question.
Also, it could be that the sifas is telling you what we learn from the story is not that we actually learn halachas from there, but this conversation that was happening during this time happens to be that we saw that we know from there, I love this problem, and we also see from there that thing, just like from that conversation.
Okay.
Also, you can say this. Otherwise, if he didn't say it in this way,
Yeah.
he was sleeping under the bed. Maybe you would have thought, probably thought maybe he's sleeping in a sukkah.
Guys,
So he had to say, no, even if he knows you're not.
I hear. But Maisa, he's talking and learning. He's talking and learning.
I know, but he's bringing out a point. He's making like,
Right.
otherwise, who said what? How many people said what his husband was? He didn't say that. I know, I'm Evetz, I don't have to sleep, I can sleep under the bed.
But we're learning more from Rabbi Gamliel, not so much about what Tavi did, more about his comment, yeah.
No, otherwise, how do you know what Tavi's intentions were by sleeping under the bed? So he said, he's sleeping under the bed, he sees that he's Talmid Chacham, he knows that he was there.
Okay.
the Mishnah only seems to.
Because otherwise, how do you know what his intention was by sleeping
I
under the bed?
hear.
Your passion. The Mishnah teaches us what the Mishnah, according to the Mishnah, is only teaching us that under a bed is not great.
And Avadim Padim.
It's not what the Mishnah is teaching us. The Mishnah itself, Peter King Lamanu,
Period. The Brisa adds in that there's two things. But Pashas Rosh Mishnah is Mavor, that all you're learning is the din.
Right, because one of Gamil spoke out very mafurish in his own words. I guess the Mishnah didn't point that out, but the Bryce is an elaboration.
But look how he says it. He says, the day Ashar in other words, he's saying this is a fact. And therefore he's not to go into the bed. So the only thing he's really teaching us is not to go into the bed. The fact that Nashim Sukkah, he's saying, he knows this thing which is already established long before this story.
Right.
And the Gemara ends off. The Mishnah ends off. One halacha.
So I thought because Reb Shimon's on our Mishnah, he's focusing on what the other two to them were talking about. So that's the one he focused on. The Bryce says more an overall thing. So the two things that we learned from him. Just to give you a mashal, what I was talking about before, the Chavetz Chaim, when he wrote his Chavetz Chaim Sefer, Hilchas Lashon, which is halacha, he learned a lot of halacha from Rabbeinu Yonah Shari Tshuva, which is a Musar Sefer. And people questioned him on it. Because they say when you write a Musar Sefer, you're not writing it for halachic intentions. You might have said something like, just to bring out the Musar, but don't take it halacha l'maisa. The Chavetz Chaim held, no. If Rabbeinu Yonah wrote it in Shari Tshuva, it's halacha l'maisa. He learned out real halachas. So just bring out this idea. If Gamil said it in a more happy, smiley way, maybe don't take it as so serious to learn that actual halachas from what he said. But at the end of the day, he did. So we see from here, now if you go back to the Mishnah, when it says, Ulefi darkenu lamanu, it means, Reb Shimon meant to say, our derech is that we do learn from what they are, our comings and goings, we do learn from how they schmooze and how they talk. We're able to learn that if you sleep under a bed, you're not Yetzir Chiyav. That's what Reb Shimon meant. This Bryce is an elaboration of what our Mishnah meant, that we're able to learn out from their Sicha. And it's a true thing. It's actually coming up in a few parshas, this Lashon Eliezer, when he said over the whole story to love and the Besuel, so many psukim, right? We learn that halachas of like an extra hay. But Eliezer's story, there's no end to the psukim. What does Rashi say? A famous line from Chazal, Yafa Sichasam. The sicha, the shmuzing of the avodim, of the avos is so dear, more than even like the Torah, the halachas of the Torah. So sometimes the sicha of the Talmid Eliezer was a Talmid Chacham also, and he was an eved of the avos. Shmuzing, he was able to learn out things. There's so much you can learn in Midas and Hagas, but even halacha. We're coming out is, even halacha and tzricha limud. You need to learn it up, and you're able to get the halacha. Mazel tov, we just got to the Mishnah, the Chazer, the Gemara, yeah. Over there's the extra reason. So Yitzi's saying that the Tosfos says that specifically by Sukkos, the Teshu came to Duru, so you might think it's more of like, that's more of a women involved. And the wife involved, even here you're potter. Just to read the Gemara one more time. Amr B'Shimon Ma'aseh B'Tav Yavdei, Tanya Brisa. Amr B'Shimon said, Mesichasei Sharam Gamliel, from the schmoozing, light speech, simcha speech of Rabbi Gamliel, Lamanu Shnei Dvarim. We learned two things. Lamanu, we learned Shavad and Petur min Sukkah, that slaves are potter from the Sukkah. V'Lamanu, and we learned Shahayoshen Tachas Amida, somebody who sleeps under the bed, Lo Yotzei Dechavasi, is not Yotzei his Chiyuv. Frek the Gemara asks, V'lema midvarov shel Rabbi Gamliel. Why don't you say from his words? What's this interesting word? Mesichasa shel Rabbi Gamliel. So the Gemara says that Reb Shimon was coming to tell us something agav or milsa, something agav orche along the way. Kamashman, he was coming to teach us. Kiha, like that which the Amr of Acha bar Ada, the Rav Acha bar Ada said. V'amilad, some reported it was Amr of Acha bar Ada, Amr of Hamnuna, Amr Rav, said the name of Rav. Minayin, from where do you know? Shafilu sichas talmidei chachamim, that even the schmoozing light speech of talmidei chachamim, tzricha lima, needs learning up, and you can learn halachas from it. We learn it out from Shenamar, from this pasuk. V'leu lo yibol, and its leaves don't wither. There's what to take out even from a tree's leaves, and the Talmid Chacham here in the mashal is the tree. Don't take its leaves lightly, and learn up what you can. And we'll stop over here. I would also chazer, if you could, even maybe a little bit tonight, even tomorrow, just cover Mishnah to Mishnah, like if you could tonight, if you have time, because it's not so much more that we did today. Anybody not at the Charusa here?